Okay, so hey everybody out there. I'm here today with Lisa Borowsky. Did I get that right?
You did. Perfect. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I'm here with Lisa, who is running for mayor at City of Scottsdale. So we're just going to talk a little bit about you and the city and everything that's kind of going on and what your goals and plans are. But I guess the first question is, have you been watching the news for like the last 5 or 6 weeks?
Uh, yeah, a little bit.
So
Constantly.
are you sure you still want to run for mayor?
My daughter asked me the same thing. She's 15, and the answer was a resounding yes. I told her this too shall pass,
Yeah, absolutely,
and
for sure.
good times are ahead.
Yeah, I think so. So I don't know if you caught it, but Governor Ducey just kind of shut down a whole bunch of stuff again today at 8. So, obviously that whole thing is kind of a state level thing, right? But I think the mayors have some feedback and input on it, like with the wearing of the masks and everything. Just to kind of get it out there, if you had been the sitting mayor during, say the last 8, 10, 12 weeks, would your approach been different? Would it have been similar to Mayor Lane's? How would you have handled what's going on?
First, it would have been different in the respect that I would have asked for a council vote if I were at the point of deciding whether or not to move forward on that. But backing up, I believe that this health crisis, such as we're confronting right now, and the measures that will be imposed upon people, should come from either the state or the county. They have public health departments, which the city does not. I would be working with the governor's office and the county board of supervisors to identify the best path, the best mitigation, the safest route, and the mitigation measures that should be imposed upon people. So I believe it would have been a little bit different if the evidence showed that masks, we've gone back and forth. There's been information shared at the outset of this that masks weren't the way to go. We saw that from the president and his team that gave us all the information to begin with. And now it appears, and convincingly so, that masks are helpful in stopping the spread. So, but if a directive is going to come down like that, I think it's justified to have the state or the county doing it. When they didn't, I think the other part of the problem is what do you do next if the county has, and the governor's office did not on the mask side. But what do you do if no one takes any action and cities surrounding us are imposing the mask requirement? That for me creates concern. And again, going back to what I think should have been done, it should have come from the state or the county, so that we're all being impacted or directed or required to do the same things. If we're not shutting down certain elements and everyone around us is, or if we're not requiring masks and everyone around us is, I think it does put us at greater risk.
Yeah, just quick thing on that, just from a personal standpoint. So Ducey's decision to kind of kick it back to the cities seemed like kind of a lame non-leadership decision, right? I mean, you've got to kind of lead from the front, and you can't have Glendale with masks, Scottsdale without, Phoenix with. That just didn't seem to be the right solution.
Well, I think it would be beneficial to have either a no or a yes, just for the reason I just said. And again, maybe that's better situated for a county decision. Maricopa County, is suffering worse than other counties. So in that regard, I think, the county board of supervisors should direct that.
Yeah. And I'm going to apologize a little bit because I did a whole bunch of interviews with candidates like in the middle of COVID or at the start, and there wasn't near as much material to talk about. Right. So we're doing a lot of stuff right now. So let's kind of jump around to what happened at Fashion Square, riots, protests, the response from the police, response from the city. What was your take on that? And would you have necessarily been involved or done something different, or how would you have handled it?
Yes, I happen to live just north of Fashion Square, so I had a front row seat to what was going on. On the south side of Fashion Square, it was a far worse situation, which I learned about the next day. I actually had the post sent to me in advance where there was a call to action to riot at Scottsdale Fashion Square. We've all seen that now, and maybe many people saw it preceding what happened. And I immediately sent it to the chief of police, and I said, I'm sure this is on your radar, but just in case, it's not, use this or add this to the information you have. So there was advance notice. If I'm getting a copy of that post, it was very widespread. I'm certainly not on any, sites that would have found it, that post would have found its way to me, but a friend of a supporter of mine had sent it to me. And I don't know where he came upon it. So it was very, very widespread, indicating that it was a large and widespread organized call to action. And so I was surprised that there was not more action taken, or more defense action to protect the businesses and the properties in the downtown area. And I was not in favor. They said the mayor and the chief of police said at the press conference the next day that that's the way that they planned and, gave a stand down order. I think that was a poor decision. Certainly, people in Scottsdale want to feel protected, and that their businesses are protected, that people can't come steal and loot our businesses and our high revenue generating assets, such as Fashion Square and other businesses. I think more arrests should have been made. As I understand it, lots of people were in the mall. Certainly there was a way it would seem, and I'm not a police, I've never been a police officer, so I'm not trying to second guess them, but the biggest concern for me was the stand down order and the lack of arrests. And so that troubled me. And I think that there could have been more officers on hand, or teed up and ready to go. Although, that's just, I'm just giving my defense after the fact. And I know that the police did the best job they could under the circumstances, but the bottom line is we just weren't prepared. Having said that, I don't want there to be any confusion, because I'm fully supportive of public safety in the police department. And I would look to, as mayor, provide them with whatever resources we can possibly provide them with to ensure that this never happens again. So that would be my pledge.
Excellent. Thank you. Great response. So kind of circle back a little bit. So obviously you decided to run for mayor prior to the whole world kind of falling apart in a handbasket, right? So now kind of looking back at that, I'm sure you have the same drive and the same reasons for running mayor, but have you seen more reasons? Have you added to it, or are you still kind of with the same basis of why you decided to run for mayor before?
I think the reasons are the same. I really feel like, the reason I decided to enter the race, I don't know, I didn't say this, but I should. I'm a lifelong Scottsdale resident.
I know, we were going to get there. You're like one of the few with the unicorn.
Yeah. And so that, I went to grade school, high school here, and, grew up here. I'm raising my daughter here. I have my law practice here. I am very, very vested in the community. And I'm sure all the candidates feel that way, but I've been here so long and seen so much. I really feel like I tune in to what Scottsdale residents are looking for in terms of leadership, in terms of thoughtful decision making, the future of our city. And I entered the race. My former supporters, I was also on the city council previously, 2008 to 2012. And I was approached to run for mayor. And it was really over the development issues, or the overdevelopment issues, I would say. People, including myself, are not happy with the rash of approvals of, high dense projects, primarily apartment projects throughout the city, ranging from north to south. And that was one of the primary reasons I got into the race. I also think there's room and there's a real need to put forward a vision of what are not only the downtown and the old town core where I live now, but just in terms of the center core, like the Scottsdale corridor area. As you move north up by the air park, what are we going to do strategically to make sure that our community grows in ways that Scottsdale residents really can embrace and get behind. And I think you do that by having more citizen engagement. I think we're at the point now where it makes sense to really take a close look at districting and direct representation model. Having currently all the council, every member of the council lives in a very small range of the city, just north of Shea in the Shea corridor in that area. So it's clustered in that area just coincidentally. But it would be great to have council members from South Scottsdale and North Scottsdale and the central part of Scottsdale, whatever the districts would break out as. But I think it's time to take a real close look at that. And that feeds into that citizen engagement, feeds into having people be part of the conversation. What do we want to look like this time 10, 20, 30 years from now? And my personal view is that I think we need to maintain the character of our city, and that is a resort-like, mostly low-slung, peaceful, relaxing, touristy feeling area with great events. It'd be great to lessen the traffic, and lots of entertainment potential. Sure. So that's how I see the future. I think we have to capitalize on that. Tourism is a very big issue for me. And I think that's how you grow the city in terms of residents, businesses. I know tourism is down, but we're going to rebound from this crisis.
So I love that you brought up the districting thing, because we talked about that with another candidate before, and it hasn't, most of the candidates didn't really seem interested in it. But at the size of the city, it kind of makes sense, because one of the things that I was going to ask you was, how do you bring Troon together with South Scottsdale, together with Gainey, together with the Bay Corridor? So how and independently of not having districts, what would be the plan if you were the mayor to bring those areas together, because they have such diverse needs, right?
Precisely. And I didn't mention I was raised in North Scottsdale in the Pinnacle Peak and Pima area, and as far out as 112th Street in Shea. So I've lived in all parts of town. This is the furthest south that I've lived currently, and I love it. But I'm very familiar with the dynamics of all parts of our city. And the other alternative, if you didn't have districting, and I don't know why we couldn't get there, I think with the right work and the right advocate for it, I think we can get there if it makes sense. And I would impanel a citizens group to also look at studying that and how the districts break down. If we didn't get there, what's another option? Village planning system. And why we couldn't get there, I think with the...
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm in stereo.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. And so if that wasn't the option that made the most sense, there's a village planning type system, much like Phoenix has, the Arcadia and PV peripheral areas. They have their own village planning commission. I think there's 14 members or thereabout, where you have, the involved citizenry from those areas acting as an advisory council or commission for their elected representatives in the city.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love it. So does a lot of that not go back to the general plan, and possibly the general plan not really having been done? Does that address a lot of it?
You're talking about the update, which I think that definitely feeds into the general plan success.
I'm sorry. Excuse me for waiting. I'm just trying to. Somebody's making comments, and I'm trying to read them, but it won't let me do that. So I'm going to let them. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
In any event, the general plan update, I believe, would be far more successful if we utilized that type of process and input and opened up the discussion to a wide array of citizens. Currently, the general plan committee or commission is populated by various members of other commissions and boards, right. And I don't know that that's the best way to go. Those are people that are already involved in City Hall, and there's a zoning attorney on it, for example. Yeah. And I'm not really sure that it makes the most sense to populate it that way. Not excluding them, because if they're interested in it, I think that makes sense. But bring more the merrier. I think that's how we get it passed.
Yeah, absolutely. And so leading on from there, so obviously we're going to have a real issue with budget, right? I would assume that it's going to be probably one of the top priorities coming in for the new mayor. any ideas on how to handle that and how to address it, and what are the priorities going forward?
So yes, I do. When I was in office previously, it was in the midst of the Great Recession, and digging out of the Great Recession was very real laborious, very complex. At that time, everything was on the table. Not public safety, it wouldn't be on the table now either, but otherwise everything's on the table that doesn't have direct touch with citizens. For example, public safety, right?
Sure.
But I brought forward I led the charge and advocated for, I can't remember exactly whose idea it was. I'll take credit for it right now, though. I think John was on board with this too. But in terms of the Citizens Budget Commission, bringing a group of sophisticated individuals, each council member had a direct appointment, and their task was to study the budget inside and out, take a deep dive into where cuts, very, very complicated and, laborious undertaking, but they were very, very helpful. They asked tough questions. They met with staff independently of council, and it was really successful. And we reined in the budget at that time significantly. And I think it's gone up about 33% since then. And that was, only back in 2012. So it's become more bloated since then, and we're going to need to rein it back in again.
Yep, absolutely. So we've got a question from the group. So someone's asking, is it time that we look at a full-time mayor as a full-time position rather than possibly just city manager with a part-time mayor? Or how do you feel about the way it's currently set up? And is it time maybe for a full-time mayor?
That's been suggested to me a number of times, and it's generally from people that are, from the Midwest, where that's the strong mayor format is more of a normal thing. But here, you just don't see it. And, it seems to make sense to me. I have to be honest with you. I've not studied it carefully enough to give you an answer about that. But I have been, supporters of mine have suggested that they believe it's time for Scottsdale to go that way. And having been on the council, and council members rotate in and rotate out, so that is a struggle in terms of having the CEO of the CEO obviously being the city manager in this case, but the only institutional memory and consistency is held with the staff, and they're not directly accountable. They are accountable to the city council, who then is accountable to the citizenry. But it makes sense to look at it closely, and I don't know that it will happen on my watch. I think that's probably a long time coming, but it's an interesting proposition.
Absolutely. So let's hop around a little bit. Kind of a hot button item prior to the COVID-19 was short-term rentals. So obviously Scottsdale's flooded with a lot of short-term vacation rentals, Airbnb, HomeAway, VRBO, and it's caused a lot of problems. It's made a lot of people a lot of money, so it's definitely an income producer, but it's also caused a lot of neighborhood problems. What's your take on it, and how would you kind of address it?
I'm a big property rights proponent, so it's a very complicated issue. This is a really, really complicated issue.
Right.
And being a strong proponent of property rights, restricting uses that are legal on one's property is that's not something I subscribe to. However, I think it comes controlling the problems, and I know it impacts residents significantly when there's an unruly VRBO owner in their area. I mean, it's life altering. I hear about it all the time. And what we need to do is work on the enforcement side, have a dedicated enforcement structure that has significant fines that are not, that if you violate the law, the ordinance in terms of noise or parties or whatever the case might be, disruptions, then you have a fine policy that is meaningful and deters that action. I know that John Kavanaugh is trying to move some protective legislation through the state, and that was caused because of the shutdown of the state legislature. But I definitely would work with him to try to make it the most meaningful and useful.
Sure. So share with us a little bit. A big part of your platform is improper building, or not, not builders not doing a good job or not putting out a good product for our city. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit? Because I haven't heard that from many other candidates.
Yes, it's interesting. The election started out as kind of the no growth and go growth. I'm neither. I'm on a case by case basis. I don't know if I mentioned I live at Optima Camelview, just north of Fashion Square. I did mention the area, but not the project. I'm not afraid of height and density. I sang the praises of the developer of Optima Camelview, and in fact, I voted for Sonoran Village. Great quality projects. Quality. It's not about quality so much. It's just about, does it fit in the area that it's being proposed in? Does it not? If it overtaxes the infrastructure, that's a very big problem. If you don't have, the traffic flow that can handle, another 700-800 units, for example, that's a problem. If you don't have the sufficient parking, currently 2 bedrooms are parked at 1.5 spaces. Probably need to look at increasing that. So you've got 2 parking spaces for each unit, especially in the downtown and Old Town core. So my idea is bring interesting projects forward that are worthy of giving the additional entitlements to. And I'm referring to projects, again, going back to a big proponent of property rights. This conversation does not apply to people building or proposing building that is already entitled on their property. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the developers that come forward trying to attain the 150-foot maximum, for example, in the downtown and Old Town core, which is discretionary and must have the majority support of the council. Well, what I would like to do is bring forward, because I think these approvals are being handed out, they're getting approved, but the citizens aren't seeing, how does this better our area? How does this make our city better? Is this consistent with is it going to have a negative impact on me, having lived here or operated my business here for, the last 2 decades, for example? So we have to see benefit. And I'm going to give you an example. There was a good project called Blue Sky at the corner of Camelback and Scottsdale Road. And it was the first tall, dense apartment project that it was the only one on my watch that had come through at that point in time. Very dense, very tall. I was not in favor of it. I thought it was a bad location for that mass of a structure. And I thought it was going to cause trouble, really, for traffic, parking, all kinds of things. And they believed they had their 4 votes for that. And I believe that too. They still wanted, and like most applicants do, they want to shore up as many votes and be as confident in case anything happens as they can be. So they really wanted my vote. And what I did was I worked with the adjacent commercial property owner, and they had a major issue with what they were doing. They were opposing it on the corner of the neighboring property owner. And it, in fact, had filed a legal challenge due to the location of the 2 properties. And so I worked with those 2, with the one that was in opposition and the citizens, to really, force, for lack of a better word, in order to get my vote, the developer had to do these things to make the project better: lower the density, create greater setbacks, bring more open space, bring more, leave it open for pedestrians to walk through, things of that nature. And we got a better project out of it. So that's, if you're going to be handing out entitlements that greatly, and dramatically increase the value of a piece of property, they need to be giving back to the community, to the city, and making it, being a good neighbor, being part of bringing Scottsdale forward in the best possible way it can be. So I think it's important that we have a much firmer structure for what those benefits are. How do you articulate those benefits?
Sure.
And we have those so that developers know where they stand and what they need to bring to the table, and citizens know where they stand and be part of that process and developing that schedule of, what do you give back if you're going to get 150 feet?
Absolutely. So, and kind of leading into part of that as far as the development, but over what's happened in the last few weeks or few months, there's a lot of grumbling that maybe the council and the mayor's office have a disconnect from the citizens. Do you think there is a disconnect between the council and the mayor and the Scottsdale residents? And if so, how do you fix that? How do you bridge that?
I do. I definitely do, which is a large part of the reason that I decided to run. I think there's a huge disconnect. I hear that from people all the time before
Right.
I entered the race. What's going on here? What is going on here?
Sure.
And so that to me symbolizes a disconnect, because people feel like the council's making decisions that do not reflect their wishes. So how do you bridge that gap? First of all, I feel like I'm very in touch with, having lived here all my life, how our city should progress. I think we should keep our standards very, very high, very high. We should, people aspire to live in Scottsdale. People aspire to travel to Scottsdale. People aspire to move their corporate headquarters here. I can't tell you how many people have told me, I came here on vacation or for a conference, and it was always my dream to live in Scottsdale. It gives me chills, literally. I just got an email about that yesterday. Again, but the story is repeated over and over and over. And so, we have to maintain what makes us great. What got us here in the first place? Why does everyone want to come here? Why does everyone want to live here? Why are we a national and international draw for tourism, generally speaking, notwithstanding this time period? So you do that by keeping a real careful eye on what's made you great to begin with. We don't want to change our flavor at this point in time. There's no need to do that. And I think we're at risk of doing that. We have been moving in that direction. And also the second part of that is more citizen engagement and the average citizens, not people that, are City Hall insiders, not that kind of engagement. So that's how I think you perfect that recipe.
So how do you get to the residents? I mean, what's the vehicle? Is it town halls? Is it social media? I mean, what's direct action steps you can take to more engage the citizenry in Scottsdale?
The village planning concept, which I talked about at the outset, net districting, that creates transparency in the process, because you've got now a commission or potentially a district where there are two council members responsible for their district. You're much closer to those neighborhoods. You're much closer to those areas, and you're much closer to the voices that you need to either get elected, stay in office, or, on the village planning side, they engage in the process. And these are passionate citizens that just care about their community. They're not trying to make money off Citizen Hall. This is what I envision happening. That's how you effectuate that closer involvement with the citizens. And I think it really resonates with people. Sure.
So switching over to housing a little bit, Scottsdale's really not affordable. So I don't know if that's a fair statement, but it's not. There's a lack of housing for people that may work in the city, whether they're first responders or they're in the hospitals or restaurants or whatever, versus what they could where they can afford. And most of the time, they can't afford to live here. So is that something that needs to be addressed? I mean, should there be some affordable housing segments or plans, or is that maybe just not the way Scottsdale is?
So this is a great point. It came up this morning on another discussion I was having. So affordable, first of all, is very subjective. What I think is affordable, what you think is affordable, what, someone walking down the street that I've asked that question to, you're going to get three different answers. But one of the individuals that was in the discussion this morning talked about having looked at Zillow, and there were 300 properties under $250,000 in Scottsdale. I can't confirm those numbers, but that's what the number was that was thrown out there. So, to me, what is affordable? When you have two, you start doing the analysis, which I don't want to do right now, because that's where you get into the debate of, no, that's not the math. But I think that whole discussion, my sense is, listening to it, because that question does come up, how I think we make Scottsdale more entry level. Well, I think there are entry level areas of Scottsdale already. So I think that the premise that there is no quote unquote entry level housing is untrue. I think there are areas in our city that are aged, that are in need of rehabilitation and upgrade and beautification. I think we enhanced our city's beautification program. We make it easier to do remodel work. We just make it easier for people to, the city beautifies certain areas of town, which they've done. Indian School, for example, east of Scottsdale Road, it's gorgeous, or maybe it's Thomas, it's Indian School. But doing more beautification efforts in the areas that are more run down, I think is a draw for people to start buying and rehabilitating these properties. And there are several other areas that I can think of that are great entry level for, you probably have to have two, income owner workers in the household. But I think this discussion is really directed at, don't we need more apartments? And to me, I also heard from a supporter today, these apartments, it's a 650-foot unit and they want $1,200. It's not, these apartments are not affordable. They're, and nothing against apartments. Hey, I have no problem with apartment dwelling and living, and I've done it. People do that at certain periods of their life, and they are some of them are gorgeous. They're super expensive. So I don't buy the conversation that we need more high dense projects in order to create affordable housing. I think that's not the case.
Cool, thank you. So two things I want to lead into is thank you for your patience, because obviously I'm at my house and stuff is beeping and going off. And it's a pain. So I'm sorry about that. But another question that kind of came up, so the new mayor coming in is going to have their hands full a little bit as far as Scottsdale's kind of got a few black eyes over the last 3 or 4 weeks, from the mask rally to what happened with Mr. Phillips, whether you agree with him or disagree with him, to the parties going on, the COVID-19, all the bars in Old Town. So what do you do coming into, one, is it an issue? And two, how do you restore and or bring the brand, so to speak, back from taking those hits?
Well, we have a great asset in Experience Scottsdale. I was on the board of the CVB, Convention and Visitors Bureau. That's what it used to be called. That's the city's marketing arm, branding and tourism arm. And, I will be a strong advocate for Scottsdale, for Scottsdale's reputation, brand, attractive, to the rest of the world. And we need to rein, this is an image hit that, we can recover from, because we've done so many things right for so long. We need to do damage control, and I think this too shall pass. And I will be the mayor that is advocating for our city and our city's reputation, and taking steps to make sure that we are seen as an inviting, inclusive, and welcoming community.
Sure. So there gets to be quite a few questions from other council members or mayoral candidates as far as bringing industry on versus tourism, a balance there. Do you need a balance? I've got obviously my own personal beliefs, but that doesn't matter. What matters is what yours are. So, here we are, a tourism mecca, right? And should there be more industry? Should there be more of those types of jobs, or should there be more tourism?
So here's the thing. I'm proud to announce that I just got endorsed by the Arizona Free Enterprise Club. And
Congrats.
they are a great organization. And government is not established. It's a free enterprise. It's the club for free enterprise, right? Government is not situated to create private sector jobs. What government, in my opinion, is situated to do is to create an environment that is conducive and welcoming and inviting, not through incentives or subsidizing financially, but creating a setting that is welcoming to business owners, to companies that want to have their headquarters here, want to open a shop here, want to live here. And going back to my earlier discussion, I just don't see how you don't include tourism as a driver for coming here, wanting to live here, wanting to move your business here as an aspiration. I mean, people aspire to live and work in Scottsdale. And so, you can't fabricate, we can't create private sector jobs. We can only create an environment by keeping property taxes low, by really trying to improve our school system, working with the Scottsdale Unified to make our schools, go up in the rankings, which I will work on doing. And we, continue with our great events. We continue with our real attractive lifestyle here. People want to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we've kind of hit the end of our time. I really super appreciate you taking a few minutes to speak with us. It's fantastic. Anything you want to close with? Anything you want to tell us that maybe we didn't touch on?
Yeah, a lot of things. Actually, a couple of other, not a lot, because I know we're at the close here. But please visit my website, standupforscottsdale.com. My reform agenda is on there. It includes requiring lobbyists to register, more transparency.
And that link's in the post, by the way. So
it is? Okay, thank you. And I just would really appreciate your vote. It's with 5 candidates in the race, it's going to be an interesting, and I intend and expect to be on the other side of August 4th, and please come out and vote, and I'd appreciate your vote for me. Thank you.
You bet. Can I run one more at you that just kind of popped up? So, with another kind of shutdown looming, who knows to what level the current one is or what will happen in the future, but do you see the role of Scottsdale city government? What's their role in helping small businesses recover and come back from this going forward?
It's a great question. And I back in April, I thought as soon as, it's a gorgeous time of year, and I just thought, the restaurants were all shut down. I felt like there's an opportunity to really open up patios, especially the time of the year, or have some outdoor opportunities to have shop owners in areas of town use the sidewalk so that people can come out. And usually it requires a pretty onerous application process and waiting period to get the city council approval for things like that on the special use permit side. And I just thought that would be a great thing to do. Of course, now it's way too hot, but people could do misters and things of that nature and move the business outside. It really could be effective. So if I were in the mayor's seat right now, I'd be looking at what can we do to ensure our citizens' safety and protect the health, address the public health crisis, be respectful of that, but still provide an opportunity for businesses to conduct business. So that's a very big deal. Moving forward, I would also institute a city division, small staff requirement, I would expect, that would be an educational force out to the businesses and providing resources for what are best practices, not in a, here we're going to give you a fine and we're here to inspect you, not in that way, but in a more helpful and welcoming, and we're here to help you do your thing more effectively. And so I think that's an idea moving forward.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you so much, Lisa. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we get to talk to you again soon, sometime in the future. And thanks again. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Bye now. Okay.